You'd think that with little other good news coming out of Rover at the moment, that their heads might be elsewhere rather than improving on a success story by introducing the new Land Rover Discovery. But here it is, and in a showroom just about near you now. The all-new Land Rover Discovery, which looks just like the other one. To be fair, this is partly the result of an owner's survey, which said we like the styling, but improve the road handling and the build quality. And so what you get is this. It's very hard to tell the two apart. A U-shaped surround to the front grille, that's an obvious one. An extra 5 inches body length gives more space in the back and a more balanced look. It's also slightly wider, which makes it beefier and improves stability. And new, higher, larger tail lights. Well, clearly the new version isn't designed to turn heads, so you'll have to persuade people that it was worth paying the 7% or so extra because it's a much classier drive. And to test that theory, well, we'll just have to drive them both at the same time. Land Rover first introduced the Discovery as a seriously professional all-rounder, smooth and comfortable in town and on motorways, with superb off-road capabilities to compete with anything else around. And it largely succeeded. OK, much of Middle England thought it was just the thing for popping the kids down to school and never found out what that second little gear shift was for, but most serious owners were generally happy on the whole, and Land Rover received plaudits from the motoring press. Now, I'd never driven a Land Rover Discovery before these two brutes landed up in my drive, and the first thing you notice is just how high the driver's position is. Land Rover call this the command position, presumably because you get a commanding view. And what's more, the horizon expands even further at the touch of a button. Going up. Whoa! I can see Surrey from up here. But then again, we are in Surrey. A good way to test the handiness of the layout of the cabin controls is to drive any car for the first time at night, so you can grope your way around and feel whether things are where they should be. And one thing I couldn't find were those seat controls, which is on the central console here. And one thing that I'm not keen on at all is the position of the door handle, which is well forward and down quite a long way, and that hasn't been changed on the new version, but it is a bit of a minor quibble. The old version is perfectly comfortable, but this one is even better, with a larger windscreen, which allows me to see even more of Surrey from my leather-bound perch. Also, an obvious add-on are these armrests, fully adjustable and a very good idea. Electronic gizmos abound here too. There's, for instance, his and hers matching digital heat controls, and 2 new buttons here which activate some important new improvements. For instance, this one is your hill descent control. This switch jacks the back of the car up on self-levelling air springs to give you extra clearance over boulders and whatever off-road. Or if you want to lower your rear end onto a tow hitch to connect up to your powerboat or glider. And then there's this that everyone talks about. It's a curry hook, somewhere to hang your takeaway on. They've thought of everything. Both versions of the Discovery I'm driving have comparable power units on the surface, but they're very different underneath. This is the old 3.9 litre automatic V8 injection, which does 0 to 60 in a respectable 11 seconds, but has an alarming combined MPG of just 17. Gulp. It's supposed to be slightly quicker and more frugal on the fuel too, which is good news. It's definitely more responsive, the power-assisted braking works really well, and is it me, or does it have a tighter turning circle than the old version too? It certainly feels like it. For a start, they've stiffened up the chassis, which now has an extra cross member, and they've introduced steering improvements, which make the car handle much more responsively like a smaller car. But the ace in the hole, as far as this car is concerned, is precisely that. ACE, or Active Cornering Enhancement. Land Rover told us that one of the most significant developments on the new Discovery is its ACE. And no, they weren't criticising the old Discovery, well, they wouldn't, would they? But one snipe often levelled at the outgoing model was that it pitched and rolled through corners, a corollary of its excellent off-road ability. The engineer's aim was to provide car-like handling without sacrificing the off-road ability Land Rover owners have come to expect. The answer ACE, or active cornering enhancement. Lateral acceleration is detected by body-mounted sensors and the information fed to the system computer. The computer assesses the situation and decides whether you're flying along your favourite A road or going completely mad off-road. An engine-mounted pump provides the pressure required for roll control modules, which counteracts body roll and stiffens suspension movement. And having ACE rather than conventional anti-roll bars allows for lower rate springs, giving maximum articulation off-road and passenger rise comfort. The system senses what's needed. As a result of this technology, the new Discovery carves up bends much better than before. The car doesn't roll as much through corners either, and the electronic roll control is designed to cut in and out unnoticed. As for safety features, well, airbags abound in both models, but I'm very surprised how thin and tinny the doors are. They don't seem to be too protective, although sitting up here I suppose the only thing that's going to broadside you is a lorry or another Land Rover. And in any case, the aluminium doors on this old version have been replaced by steel ones, which will at least help to prevent dings. Well, Rover need to sell between 60 and 70,000 of these a year, and whereas the entry-level price is about £25,000, by the time you've got to this top-of-the-range V8 version, you're looking at £35,000 with extras on top of that. In its class, it's a class act, and Rover will be keeping their fingers crossed that their middle-class buyers aren't hit by that other nasty discovery, an economic recession.
This car I'm driving is unique, certainly unique as far as its manufacturer is concerned, which up until now had been the producer of largest luxury cars. Not to say that this car isn't luxurious. If David Beckham thought that he got a rough ride after his sending off in the World Cup, it was nothing compared to the hounding that this car received from the world's media after it was tripped up by the Swedes and fell over. And this is the all-new, all-revised Mercedes A-Class, which has finally arrived on our shores. The tripping up by the Swedes was, of course, the now infamous Elk test conducted by a group of motoring writers from a Swedish magazine. It involves a sudden and violent manoeuvre to avoid an object. What happened next is motoring folklore. The A-Class lost stability and over it went. Now, at that time, Mercedes hadn't started production of right-hand drive cars, so there were none in this country, but it led Mercedes to a complete halt of A-Class production until a solution was devised. And what they've come up with here is probably the safest small car, if not the safest car ever built.
Mercedes spent £1 billion developing the radical A-Class, a Mercedes for the masses at a price that they can afford. And as you can see, there is nothing like it on the road today. It is so different. The Renault Megane Scenic is its closest rival in terms of its concept and what it stands for, but looks nothing like this.
The real clever point about the A-Class is its size. It's actually less in length than a Ford car and over a foot less than a Ford Fiesta, and that is no mean feat. But inside it has the space and comfort of a large family saloon, and it has the boot space of a small to medium sized hatchback. Plus, all these passenger seats are removable, allowing you to have a very large load carrying area. Now, you could quite realistically compare the interior size of the A-Class with that of the C-Class and find very little difference. In fact, you'd have the impression of more space here in the A-Class because of the tall roofline and high seating position. There's a decent amount of space and legroom here in the rear, even for passengers like me, plus a very clever idea. I really like this, an integrated child seat. You press a button there, it pops back, locks into place, and what a neat idea that is.
This model is the A160 Elegance, which is the most luxurious. Standard across the whole range are dual and side airbags, ABS, tinted glass, power steering, electric windows, and finally, a radio cassette. On the Elegance, you also get air conditioning, alloy wheels, and height-adjustable steering wheel. And as in most of the other Mercedes range, the choice of trim is classic, elegance, or avant-garde. There are 3 engines to choose from, a 1.4, 1.6 and 1.7 turbo diesel. This engine is the 1.6 and produces 102 brake horsepower from its 4-cylinder engine. 0 to 60 time takes 11 seconds and a top speed of 113 miles per hour with very good fuel economy. A figure of 39 to the gallon is quoted on the combined calculation, and the turbo diesel will give you 56 to the gallon. So, what about those other important safety features? Well, of course, there's ABS and brake assist, which works in emergency situations and helps the driver achieve maximum brake boost in a fraction of a second. ASR is a traction control system to stop wheel spin during acceleration. And finally, there's ESP, Electronic Stability Program, which unites all of the safety features, as well as reducing the risk of skidding and stabilising the car. It's ESP which was the critical addition to the A-Class, which has now made it so stable.
The A-Class range comes, as you would expect, with a choice of 5-speed or automatic gearbox, plus what Mercedes describe as the best of both worlds, a 5-speed gearbox with an automatic clutch. What's that, you might think? You're confused, I can see. Well, so was I when the car first arrived at home the other day. I could see as I jumped in it was a 5-speed gearbox and went with my left foot to put on the clutch, only to find that there wasn't one. Took a bit of getting used to, I have to say. And now that you have mastered it, it's quite an easy gearbox to work with. You have to ease off the accelerator slightly, as you would do normally with a 5-speed gearbox and a clutch, to get smooth gear changes. And I quite like the idea of it. However, if you don't want the hassle of a clutch and a gearbox, I go for the automatic version anyway. Now, if you're used to driving largish 4x4 vehicles, you think that the A-Class will give you the same kind of superior safety feeling as those, well, for me personally, it doesn't. At times, it can feel slightly nervous with a bit of body roll, but you at least know that with all the electronic safety assistance in the car, you'll be okay.
Prices for the A-Class start at £14,490 on the road for the A140 Classic. The A160 starts at £15,490, and the most expensive A-Class is the 170 turbo diesel at £17,890. We decided to take the Mercedes A-Class to a private airstrip and really put it through its paces and see how those safety features have come over in the new car. First of all, we put it through a series of high-speed corners. Then a slalom test. There was a brake test from 70 miles per hour, which made the Mercedes stop very, very quickly indeed. And as you can see, there seem to be no problems. The electronic aids really come into play when you push it hard, especially coming out of a corner and putting your foot down hard on the accelerator.
So we all really like the style and design of the Mercedes A-Class. It has some wonderful features and touches on it. Just look at that louvered sunroof, for instance. So is it a super mini, an MPV, a hatchback, or a quality executive saloon? Well, perhaps it's all of those things, and perhaps it's none of those things. It really is unique. There is nothing else like it. So who would this car appeal to? Well, certainly a young couple with a family who wanted that famous pointed badge for quality and reliability on their vehicle. My retired next door neighbour absolutely loved it, and after I'd taken him out for a spin in it, went scampering off to our local Mercedes dealer, who no doubt told him to join the 15,000 other people in the queue who apparently want a Mercedes A-Class. So it's a car that attracts people from all ages and all walks of life, and that's perhaps exactly what Mercedes intended the A-Class to be for.
Here at the Weybridge factory, they're still building around 15 super blowers a year by the time-honoured craftsmanship, hand assembly and hand building methods. But at AC, the emphasis has switched very much to the new car, the Ace, the car that broke the company. It's a lovely looking car. It reminds me a bit of the AC427 Frau convertible from the 60s. All the extras you'd expect for a car in this price range, feels well screwed together too, and it gives enough go. Now, can't you just imagine yourself cruising down the seafront at Nice in this car? It's exactly the right image. the right sort of weather, just take me to the ferry. Mind you, this is no boulevard cruiser. This car is fitted with the superblower engine we saw in the Cobra. You can have it in unsupercharged 5-litre form, or you can have it in 4.6 quad cam, the smoothest V8 around, which is designed for the new Mustang. And if you want to use it, the performance is there. 0 to 60 again, round about 5 seconds, maximum speed governed to 155 miles an hour. Back in the 1950s, when most cars on Britain's roads were of the Ford Pop or Morris Minor level of performance, AC Cars, one of Britain's oldest car manufacturers, came out with a jaw-droppingly beautiful sports car called the Ace, capable of 100 miles an hour. Now, the story of how Carroll Shelby subsequently shoehorned a fire-breathing Ford V8 into the chassis and created the brutal Cobra is the stuff of motoring legend. It's pretty much the mixture as before. Oh, I'm getting old. Take a big Ford V8, in this case the 5-litre supercharged 320 brake horsepower unit, slot it into the same old body and chassis, make it meet modern emission, noise and safety regulations, slap on a price tag of £70,000 and Bob's your uncle. But of course there's far more to it than that. They've spent a great deal of time and money refining the car over the original Cobra. The first 289s and 427s were real animals. Driving them was like playing Russian roulette. You never knew when the bomb was going to go off. And if the Cobra did bite you, you knew it was going to be fatal. But that old Cobra trademark is still here in the superblower. And that performance, 0 to 60 around 5 seconds, and maximum speed, well, when does your wig blow off and your false teeth fall out? Still the best adrenaline pump that man has yet invented. Trouble with the AC original for me is the number of replicas on the market. Now, when any Tom, Dick or Harry can build a Sierra-based replica of this car for 12,000 quid, then spending 70,000 on the original starts to lose a bit of the charisma. Now, we promised you an exclusive treat, and here it is. The AC Aseca, the second of the pillars upon which the future wealth and prosperity of AC cars will be based. It's the front end of the Ace. The wheelbase is lengthened by 240 millimeters and designed by Ron Saunders, their chief designer. It's a coupe with aluminium body and a full 4-seater capacity. We first saw it at the motor show last year. That car was a non-runner. They've been working on it here at Byfleet, and now it definitely does run. And we're going to be the first British team allowed to drive it. Now, this, after all, is an engineering prototype, so one respects the factory. We're not going to go for ultimate performance figures, but with a 4-cam V8 developing 320 brake, AC estimate the 0 to 60 in around 5.5 seconds and a governed maximum of around 155 miles an hour. It's the sort of car that's designed for cruising across continents. Beautifully trimmed inside, as you'd expect, lovely leatherwork, nice walnut, good instrument display, and all done in-house by AC themselves, which is quite surprising in these days when most components are bought out. Few shakes and rattles in this car, but as I say, you'd expect it in a prototype. And very good room for your mates in the back. It's difficult to form complete road impressions on such a short acquaintance, but very light steering. It feels extremely sure-footed with this width of rubber on the road. Nicely weighted steering, although at full lot with some tyre scrub that indicates they've got a bit of work to do on their steering geometry next. Borg Warner T45 gearbox with short throw, but they anticipate that when they get into production, automatics will be the preferred option. And in the crowded traffic conditions of Weybridge, it doesn't overheat, doesn't fart and bang like a performance car. It's starting to show its true colours as a quiet, dignified, gentleman's high-speed carriage. At the back, under the smooth lines, a tailgate lifts to reveal substantial luggage accommodation. There really is room for your golf clubs in here, and on the production versions the seats will fold forward for more luggage capacity. Again, everything beautifully trimmed in suede and carpet. This is still very much a prototype. The tailgate will probably be a bit wider in production cars. Lovely shape. It reminds me of early Bristol 400s, aerodynamic contours, and no bad thing for that. AC say the car will sell for £70,000 when it's launched. They're already working on car number 2, and get your name down on the list, because they're only going to build initially about 1 a week. You always feel sorry for tiny little independent companies like this fighting for survival in a world dominated by the industry big boys. On the basis of our visit to Weybridge, the air of cheerful optimism is infectious, and if effort and commitment count for anything, they do deserve to succeed. Let's hope there's enough people out there ready to lay out their cash in a very good cause.